Good morning. Happy Thursday to you. My name is Evan Smith. I'm the pastor at Second Presbyterian Church here in downtown Stanton, and I'm coming to you today for your daily video devotional. Today we're continuing right in where we were at 2 Peter, and this is a little bit of a longer passage, and it's a harder passage in some ways, but I think it has a lot to say, so let's dive in. We'll be looking at 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 18 through 25, which is finishing up the chapter. Peter writes, "Slaves, accept the authority of your masters with all deference, not only those who are kind and gentle, but also those who are harsh. For it is a credit to you if, being aware of God, you endure pain while suffering unjustly. If you endure when you are beaten for doing wrong, what credit is that? But if you endure when you do right and suffer for it, you have God's approval. For to this you have been called, because Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example so that you should follow in his steps. He committed no sin, and no deceit was found in his mouth. When he was abused, he did not return abuse. When he suffered, he did not threaten, but he entrusted himself to the one who judges justly. He himself bore our sins in his body on the cross, so that, free from sins, we might live for righteousness. By his wounds you have been healed. For you were going astray like sheep, but now you have returned to the shepherd and the guardian of your souls." So we don't like passages about slavery, right? Like we don't. People want to uphold passages about slavery and ask, how could the Bible not just outright prohibit slavery, considering what we think of? And I can go into all kinds of arguments about how up to half the people were slaves. They didn't have a social welfare system. Like, what would that mean? And I even heard one analogy that N.T. Wright gives, that it'd be the same as saying we should have no fossil fuels. And we would laugh and say, sure, the world would be better if we didn't have to use fossil fuels, but how else would we get where we're going? And they would say the same thing about slavery. But the harder message here is this idea. Peter's telling the slaves, you got to honor a harsh master just like you would a good one. Because if you do wrong and you get judged for it, then what credit is that? Of course you did wrong. But imagine how God honors you when you've done nothing wrong and yet you're still suffering. Now, we're not slaves, and so it may seem like this doesn't apply to us, but here's where it does apply to us still. There are going to be times that we suffer unjustly. Like that we've done nothing wrong, nothing that we can see, and yet somehow we're suffering, things aren't going our way, and we want to know why. And we cry out to God, and it seems like there's no answers, and we don't understand. And that's where this passage fits in. That's where this passage fits in, because it's saying there's a way that when we have suffered for doing nothing wrong, there's a way that we receive a special honor from God in that. And we can look to the example of Christ, because Jesus also suffered despite having done no wrong, that he committed no sin, no deceit was found in his mouth, and yet he suffered. He didn't threaten back. He didn't abuse others, but he entrusted God in the midst of everything. And that's our role model. That's what we're to do too. And it's not an easy word. It's not a word that I even really like giving in a lot of ways. But in the midst of whatever suffering we're going through, whatever it is that we suffer that is not just, realize that Jesus has been there too, and look to him as your model in all things. And that is your word for today. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please click the like button, maybe even share it on your own page. Thanks a lot. Have a great day, and goodbye.